Practical Vedanta 1, Part 2. The Vedanta preaches the ideal, and the ideal, as we know, is always far ahead of the real, of the practical, as we may call it. There are two tendencies in human nature, one to harmonize the ideal with the life, and the other to elevate the life to the ideal. It is a great thing to understand this, for the former tendency is the temptation of our lives. I think that I can only do a certain class of work. Most of it perhaps is bad. Most of it perhaps has a motive power of passion behind it, anger or greed or selfishness. Now, if any man comes to preach to me a certain ideal, the first step towards which is to give up selfishness, to give up self enjoyment. I think that is impractical. But when a man brings an ideal which can be reconciled with my selfishness, I am glad at once and jump at it. That is the ideal for me. As the word orthodox has been manipulated into various forms, so has been the word practical. My doxy is orthodoxy. Your doxy is heterodoxy. So with practicality. What I think is practical is to me the only practicality in the world. If I am a shopkeeper, I think shopkeeping the only practical pursuit in the world. If I am a thief, I think stealing is the best means of being practical, others are not practical. You see how we all use this word practical for things we like and can do? Therefore, I will ask you to understand that Vedanta, though it is intensely practical, is always so in the sense of the ideal. It does not preach an impossible ideal, however high it be, and it is high enough for an ideal. In one word, this ideal is that you are divine. Thou art that. This is the essence of Vedanta. After all its ramifications and intellectual gymnastics, you know the human soul to be pure and omniscient. You see that such superstitions as birth and death would be entire nonsense when spoken of in connection with the soul. The soul was never born and will never die, and all these ideas that we are going to die and are afraid to die are mere superstitions. And all such ideas as that we can do this or cannot do that are superstitions. We can do everything. The Vedanta teaches men to have faith in themselves first. As certain religions of the world say that a man who does not believe in a personal God outside of himself is an atheist, so the Vedanta says a man who does not believe in himself is an atheist. Not believing in the glory of our own soul is what the Vedanta calls atheism. To many, this is no doubt a terrible idea, and most of us think that this ideal can never be reached. But the Vedanta insists that it can be realized by everyone. There is neither man nor woman nor child, nor difference of race or sex, nor anything that stands as a bar to the realization of the ideal, because Vedanta shows that it is realized already, it is already there. All the powers in the universe are already ours. It is we who have put our hands before our eyes and cry that it is dark. Know that there is no darkness around us. Take the hands away, and there is the light which was from the beginning. Darkness never existed, weakness never existed. We who are fools cry that we are weak. We who are fools cry that we are impure. Thus, Vedanta not only insists that the ideal is practical, but that it has been for all the time, and this ideal, this reality, is our own nature. Everything else that you see is false, untrue. As soon as you say, I am a little mortal being, you are saying something which is not true. You are giving the lie to yourself. You are hypnotizing yourselves into something vile and weak and wretched. The Vedanta recognizes no sin, it only recognizes error. And the greatest error, says the Vedanta, is to say that you are weak, that you are a sinner, a miserable creature, and that you have no power and you cannot do this and that. Every time you think in that way, you, as it were, rivet one more link in the chain that binds you down. You add one more layer of hypnotism onto your own soul. Therefore, whosoever thinks he is weak is wrong. Whosoever thinks he is impure is wrong and is throwing a bad thought into the world. This we must always bear in mind, that in the Vedanta there is no attempt at reconciling the present life, the hypnotized life, this false life which we have assumed with the ideal. But this false life must go, and the real life which is always existing must manifest itself, must shine out. No man becomes purer and purer. It is a matter of great manifestation. The veil drops away and the native purity of the soul begins to manifest itself. Everything is ours already: infinite purity, freedom, love, and power. The Vedanta also says that not only can this be realized in the depths of forest or caves, but by men in all possible conditions of life. We have seen that the people who discovered these truths are neither living in caves nor forests, nor following the ordinary vocations of life, but men who, we have every reason to believe, led the busiest of lives. Men who have had to command armies, to sit on thrones and look to the welfare of millions, and all these in the days of absolute monarchy, and not as in these days when a king is to be a great extent a mere figurehead. Yet they could find time to think out all these thoughts, to realize them, and to teach them to humanity. How much more then should it be practical for us, whose lives compared with theirs are lives of leisure? That we cannot realize them is a shame to us, seeing that we are comparatively free all the time, having very little to do. My requirements are as nothing compared with those of an ancient absolute monarch. My wants are as nothing compared with the demands of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, commanding a huge army, and yet he could find time in the midst of the din and turmoil of battle to talk the highest philosophy and to carry it into his life also. Surely we ought to be able to do as much in this life of ours, comparatively free, easy, and comfortable. Most of us here have more time than we think we have, if we really wanted to use it for good. With the amount of freedom we have, we can attain to 200 ideals in this life, if we will, but we must not degrade the ideal to the actual. One of the most insinuating things comes to us in the shape of persons who apologize for our mistakes and teach us how to make special excuses for all our foolish wants and foolish desires. And we think that their ideal is the only ideal we need have. But it is not so. The Vedanta teaches no such thing. The actual should be reconciled to the ideal, the present life should be made to reconcile or coincide with the life eternal.